Do you want to take your life to the next level? Join us as we learn from real people who've overcome real problems with real solutions. Welcome to the Unstoppable Growth Podcast with your hosts, Rebecca and Tim Lindsay.
Welcome to the Unstoppable Growth Podcast. We are so excited to be here with you today. It's all about growth. It's all about transformation. It's all about what God wants to do in you. As Rebecca always says, we have an unstoppable God. That is why you and I can become unstoppable too. And we have the OGs in the house. And that is not the original gangsters, it's the old guys. Oh, sorry.
It's the original.
It's the original gangsters who are in the house. Jen and John Gilmer. We got to know them at the 21 days of prayer at Seacoast. It was absolutely incredible and awesome. We hit it off immediately. We have kids of the same age, and we started inviting each other to each other's homes. And they came to the first 90-day experience.
So maybe we are the original guinea pigs. Thinking that fits better.
Yeah. That sounds good. Original guinea pigs.
We're the first to go through.
But it takes something, when you're in a friendship and somebody of your friends say, we're doing this course, come and be coached by us. It takes humility. It takes a step to sort of let go of, okay, and dig into it. And we just love the way you did that, and have supported this all the way since, and have also created your own impact, your own story, your own coaches, your own coaching groups, and it's just been incredible how it's been multiplied through you. I think half of the people that have gone through the Unstoppable Growth 90-day experience were invited by the Gilmers. And they've invited some great people like Pelbats and Max and a whole lot of others.
Douglases, they were on.
Douglases as well, who've all become coaches and are all impacting the people around us. So we're so excited. Are you excited, Rebecca?
I'm very excited. That's true.
All right, let's dig in a little bit. One question before we get to the sort of unstoppable growth process and story or whatever, I'd like to go back a little bit before that and just dig into how you found God and what kind of a story is there, how you grew up, and what kind of things happened in your life in connection to that God that you found before you even got to Unstoppable.
I'll let you go first.
Okay, so I grew up in a Southern Baptist home, hellfire and brimstone. We were in the church whenever the doors were open. So we were always there, and always early. But I accepted the Lord and went down to get baptized when I was in second grade. And I knew what I was doing, but then in seventh grade, Fellowship of Christian Athletes is where I really became more yielded in understanding who Christ was in my life. And so I rededicated my life in seventh grade at a Myrtle Beach retreat.
What would you say is the biggest difference between, when you say being yielded, what does that mean?
For me, just the difference between second grade, I feel like it was probably more on my parents' faith. I felt the emotion. I felt like, oh, I know who God is. But in seventh grade, it was through a humbling heart. Like I was just like, wow, in awe of who God was, and started witnessing and sharing with other sports groups and going around and doing that. Now, my story is like many. I got to college and made plenty of the wrong choices. Now, I would go out and go to a party at night, but I would come home and read my Bible before I went to sleep because I grew up that I might rapture that night. So the last thing I better do before I go to bed is read the Word.
And read a Bible verse, say prayer.
3 in the morning.
I'm good to go.
Yes, I'm good now. I'm good. And then in life, through which you'll hear our story, or may have heard it, through my first marriage, it was me and the kids. We went to church all the time. I grew in my faith with the Lord, and really through sanctification, like we all do. But when I got divorced, I kind of stopped serving, stopped everything. I felt shame and that I wasn't worthy to serve and to give anymore. And so I really had to dig into God's love for me even through sin. And so that was another big change in my life that came in my faith and that I've grown through to get me to where I am now.
Isn't that incredible how the enemy puts us into a prison
Oh,
and guilty of any sin? Or if you have had a negative experience or whatever that is, the most appropriate thing for you to be able to do is actually go back into the community and serve alongside people and build those connections and those relationships. But shame keeps us back.
I was leading at Kids Coast for 7 years, led third, fourth, fifth graders, and then I would rotate. And I spent all the time with them. Every Friday I'd have them over and we would do Bible study. And as soon as I got separated, I had it in my head that I didn't have anything to offer. And how could I talk to these kids when I had blown it in my marriage? And so I pulled away from serving for quite a bit. Well, I got together with them when the kids were through COVID. I got all the girls together, but since then really hadn't. I don't feel that shame anymore, but it took this new life that we have for me to see that God actually had a plan for me even through what had happened.
Yeah.
Well, obviously you can tell who leads us in the family, keeps us on track.
Keeps you on track.
Yeah. Hellfire and brimstone. I also was raised in the church. My parents still attend the same Methodist church that I attended when I was 2.
Yeah.
And they are still very active in the church. They've always been active in the church. And, going to church on Sunday wasn't a, option is the right word. It's just something we did. It wasn't, there was never an argument about are we going or aren't we going? We were just going. We were sometimes coaxed by a good breakfast, somewhere out on a Sunday, but church was always a part of
Waffle House wasn't.
No, Andy's Diner, which it's kind of a Waffle House type of place, but it was just a part of who we were.
Now, was that faith on the Sunday? Was that also in the home? Did you pray together? Did
No,
you read the
not
Bible together. Or?
Not really. In the interesting part, now that my parents winter down south and spend time with us, they even comment how because we'll pray before dinner or we're doing Bible study in the morning, and it's kind of inspiring to them in their 80s because it's not something that. Faith wasn't brought into the home. It was as active as they are throughout the week. It was always active at the church, not active in how they talked about it in the house.
Yeah, that's good. So you grew up in this Christian home, and then did you make a decision for Christ early on, or was it just a part of? Was it more sort of like nominal Christianity in the sense?
Yeah, it was definitely nominal. Confirmed as a teenager, baptized as a baby, did all the youth group stuff, went on mission trips during the summer as a teen, and then when my wild side always kind of I think held me back from really having a relationship with Christ.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned before, it was like this tug and pull. It was it definitely was. I always felt God's presence in my life.
Yeah.
But I wasn't always running toward that presence. I was a lot of times running away from it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when did the decision making come in? When did you realize this is something that I want to dig into? This is or how?
I think
what kind of a revelation did you have?
I certainly baptized as an adult in a non-denominational church that I was going to. But again, I walked that walk for a while, and then through bad relationships, prior to Jennifer, our story is previous marriages, and so through those previous marriages, I had distanced myself from my faith, and really was not. Church was a check the box thing.
Yeah.
It was something I did on Sunday, and then I went right to the bar. To watch football.
Yeah.
That was my routine on a Sunday.
Yeah. And how did you become Christian?
After I was separated with my wife before Jennifer, it was just Alex and I at the house, and he actually came. I knew that he was going out with friends on Wednesdays. I really wasn't. He wasn't forthcoming about where he was going, but came to me one week and said, hey, I want to get baptized this weekend. I've been going to youth group on Wednesday night, and then he told me the story, and deeper into that story is that he was really struggling at the time, and so the girl that invited him to that youth group, it was certainly a divine appointment between the two of them. She saw that he was struggling and invited him into something that was just transformative for him. And so really, like him getting baptized, it was like a kairos, if you will. It was this aha moment of, oh my gosh, like if one, you always think that you want to be the one that leads your kids to Christ. And that certainly wasn't what I was doing. And so, I tell him this all the time, like I that you were the one that led me, and it's true. It certainly reset that pattern in my life to where I was like, I have got to get back into church.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I love the fact that, oh my goodness, that the children can lead their parents. And so what happens is like it's superseding sort of earthly authority, and then heavenly authority comes in, and our Father in heaven is doing something great with our children, and our children start leading the way. I remember sitting around the table with Kiara, we're discussing our evening meal, and then I'm talking about something, I get a little bit offended, I'm like getting frustrated or angry or whatever, and then she turns to me and she says, Dad, your life would be so good if you didn't get offended so easily. Right. I'm like, oh my goodness, our children are teaching us, right? God is using our children to grow us, and I love that.
What changed in you when you saw that? Because you had interactions with God before. When you saw your son going in, what was the drive that you had in you, the longing that you suddenly felt? I
don't know that I ever had a really deep emotional relationship with Christ.
Yeah.
In that moment, I watch kids get baptized now, and it just brings me back to that emotion all over again. Yeah. It will bring tears to my eyes every time, and it is that emotional connection that I knew, like, yes, like God is saving him. It's that was what it was more than anything. It was like if this church can bring him to Christ, I have got to be a part of this church.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We always talk about that Kairos moments, right? Kairos moments not just being something that is in our heads and but it has an emotional impact on our hearts, and I love that because I think with our heads we can actually sort of cut things out and cut things off. We can adjust things and move things around and explain things away. But then when our heart is caught, we know this is more than just something that we can think about and do. But it has an emotional impact.
Rebecca almost got me to cry there.
I was thinking, I don't have the tissue box. What do I do if he starts crying?
I saw the quiver lip.
I can give you a moment. Maybe more will come.
But what I love with that, even this emotion, it almost affirms something probably in you. That's why I want to continue having moments. And so when you started going back to church, kind of getting involved, what would you say even changed within you?
I think everything, it started to do work within me. I don't think it totally, it was certainly a repentance or a turning away from some of the behaviors that I had. They were still there. There were still things that I was doing, but More than anything, what it changed in me was the things that were broken in me were starting to heal. They were starting to heal through a lot of emotion. That as a guy, I stuffed things down, stuffed it down. I didn't, emotion really wasn't my go-to. It wasn't on the surface, and it was just bringing these things that I would probably just stuff down, these old, relational things or shame or embarrassment or whatever it was being brought to the surface, and it was just healing things inside of me.
Yeah.
Cool. Down the road, that was everything. Was this here in South Carolina, or was it?
It was. Mm-hmm.
So how much later did you meet Jen? And then you can, if you don't mind going into your story a bit of.
Year and a half later?
Yeah, not long.
Yeah, a year. Well, we started talking a year later.
I had to vet him for quite some time. Yeah.
I mean, you met.
Did you have many other boyfriends beforehand?
This was the first. So we met on Christian Mingle. And he was the first guy I actually gave my real phone number to, as opposed to like just talking through the system.
You give out fake numbers?
No. You just talk through Christian Mingle until you're ready to well, yeah. I mean, he told me he had the same dogs as I did. So he used that to say, oh, they won't let me download any pictures. So can I just give you my number? So he's also a little sly in the way he did it. But he was the first guy I went out with. I did go out with a couple of other people because after I went out with him, I thought, okay, that was way too comfortable and way too easy. Is it just because I want to be with somebody? So I went out with a couple other people just to see, but it was definitely not the thing. But I had an easy online story. He has plenty of not so easy online.
Plenty.
When you met, we know a bit of your story. You both have broken backgrounds relationship-wise. What gave you the courage to, first of all, with your brokenness, even to embrace a new one? And then down the road, you started healing even from your past relationship while you already were together.
So for me, I was married 15 years, but it had been over for quite some time. I just wasn't ready to acknowledge it. I am a competitive, you don't fail, you finish strong, whatever. That's how I was raised. And so I was not willing to let go that I had failed at this marriage. So, but by the time I actually did let go, that I felt like God was like, let's go. And I trusted the Lord to leave the kids. I knew that once the year of you're not supposed to date for a year or whatever. I knew once that time period was over, I wanted somebody to hang out with. I like companionship. So dating.
During the divorce, you're not supposed to.
Yeah, during that year of separation.
Who tells you you're not allowed to date for a year?
During that year of separation, you're not supposed to date.
Yes.
So after that, I think I went out with the girls one time and it was such a nightmare that I thought, okay, this is not the way I want to do this. And so friends convinced me to get on Christian Mingle. And you're so down on yourself after failure in a marriage. And, it was a very verbally abusive relationship. So I was very down on myself and had a lot of condemnation. So being online, it actually lifts your spirits, getting attention. So I probably fell into that part of it for the wrong reasons. But then when we went out, I wasn't thinking of, I'm finding my husband right now. I just really wanted companionship, somebody to hang out with and go out with.
Yeah.
I couldn't visualize being remarried at that point because I was still dealing with the shame of the divorce.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if I reflect on it, I think I knew I didn't want to continue to live the life that I was living, and I knew after failed relationships, I also knew that I was not going to find the person that God wanted me to be with in a bar. And so I did join.
Not that you can't.
No, but my track record wasn't really good. So I needed to change the venue just a little.
Change the environment just a little. Okay.
So yeah, it's I joined Christian Mingle for the sole purpose that I was trying to right the ship, if you will. I was trying to do things a different way, going to church on Sundays, trying to change my habits. And one of those habits was to date somebody that would go to church with me on Sunday.
Yeah.
And so that's where it kind of all started from. I didn't have the greatest experiences with it at first, to be honest with you. I had horrible experiences and stopped using it. And the renewal fee came up like after a year, and I saw it come out of my account, and I said, well, now that I've paid it, I might as well get back on. And she was the first person that I met.
Let's go. I didn't know this. This is awesome.
Yeah. And so, yeah, by that time, I needed good accountability.
Well, I know, so many people have come up to me and just commented on your marriage, and it's so encouraging for them to see a couple like you with a blended family get along so well with each other. And, you always say, our son, Alex, right? And, John, his children, Rebecca and Andrew, and they are, your children and respectively, are one family and have been able to work well with the other father and mothers, and that's awesome. But congratulations on really just going through that process and digging deep. I know that maybe we want to dig deeper into the story, or do we want to go through the 90-day process?
I would have taken it parallel, like what made you signing up for Unstoppable, and what did you experience with your story?
So honestly, we had no idea what we were signing up for. Like so many people say,
yeah.
We had met you guys. Y'all were like, we're going to take it to it's a high impact 90-day experience.
Let's go.
What does that mean? I remember sitting at the table the first day going, do you know what this is? Like just leaning in, like, do you know? Not that we don't still do that with you guys sometimes. Going, you know what we're doing here? So we had no idea.
Sometimes we don't know what we're doing.
Well, but it was one of those God things that we had no idea how life transforming this process was going to be and what we had ahead of us. We had been blessed because of our past. We went into our marriage, sitting in the window seat every morning, doing Bible study together, being at church, being open. You've heard our stories of how we've learned to be straightforward and open with each other. So we were so determined, and our relationship, we're in this relationship that we never knew we could have. So we appreciate it so much. So I think when we came into this, we just had no idea, because you don't know what more is until you're at more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he had so much more for us.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think we are, part of who we are is, you talk about the blended family, and our mindset is always creating good foundations for ourselves. And so we, before we ever got married, we went through a blended families class.
Yeah.
So we knew the pitfalls and what to expect and how to navigate those relationships. And it was really helpful for me.
Yeah, because it wasn't always easy. Where we are now was not how it started during dating.
Right. Exactly. But it was the patience and the willingness to want to grow, I think was important to us. And I think that, so this 90 days we viewed it the same way. This is an opportunity for us to grow, to find out things, be transparent, own our stories. We didn't know all of this stepping into it, but every time that there was that challenge, right? It was like, okay, challenge accepted, because we know that we want to create a good foundation, and it's important to us. So
that's so true. We have 1 week at Unstoppable, which we call Be Coachable. And there we say, like, a good coach is great, but even better is the person being coached. If you are a good coachee, if you are humble, if you are committed, if you are vulnerable, then you can grow almost without a coach, right?
Yeah.
Or with a bad coach. And so it was so incredible to see, and that's what we saw in you when you came. You were ready, hungry to grow, and I love that. Not just in Unstoppable, but also in your pre-marital class or your pre-family class, where you learned about blended family, and I can see that totally in your relationship, the way you treat each other, the way you treat your children, the way you care for your children, you know, whether that's through the baseball that you've been doing or going to Chicago this weekend to visit Alex or whatever. You've found a way of caring for each other as a blended family.
Yeah.
And that, I'm assuming, was a lot of work, you know?
Well, we're on the same page a lot. It goes back to our window seat time, or the time that we spend in the morning, just in the Word, and that leads into great conversations. You know, not every morning are great conversations. Sometimes they're very challenging conversations, but they help us grow and they help us get us on the same page. It's, you know, the thing about it is, well, you know this because you know, when singles come through this, right, they're dependent on their own effort, right?
Yeah.
When couples come through this, if one or the other isn't all in,
Yeah.
it as a couple, you don't get what you need to get out of it as a couple. And so we are both yielded to giving equal effort to the things that we're giving our effort to. And so it works that way.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Cool. How do you deal with the risk? Like you said, we didn't know what we're signing up for. We didn't even know what more can be in the more. And so when you realized, it's not just you hearing a content, it's actually, it requires your investment, it requires you opening up, it requires you sharing stuff. How was that?
For me, risk of leaving, you know, a 15-year marriage with the kids, for being a single mom, working the way that I did, I built a house or did different things that were very risky. Getting married again, like even dating again. I remember dating and it started getting serious, and I was like, whoa, this is like it. So there were a lot of things leading up to this, that every time I trusted God with it, he just kept showing more and showing more. So by the time we came to this, like, we were, at least for me, I was all in on anything God had, because he always shows up to show you something great. And every time I do that again, or we do that as a couple, we're like, it confirms God's always there. He always has more. It doesn't mean there's not some hard stuff in between it, but he just shows up so big. And so I don't want to miss any of that.
She's more courageous than I am. I would say she probably leads us in the just I'm all in type of attitude. It's, you know, for me, the risk was, you know, the narrative of my story, you know, that, you know, how does everybody view my story, you know, and it's and so just being transparent and being real, that was my risk. And so it was what held me back from telling her originally about previous relationships, the risk of what will she think, transparent about things. And no, but I applaud her for it, because she's transparent about things and she's willing to just put herself out there, and this is who I am. It's encouraging to me to do the same thing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Part of the risk for Unstoppable, especially if you do a 90-day course, is you are part of a women's coaching group and you are part of a men's coaching group. So if you're married, you don't really know what your spouse is going to share or not. So you will have to come to this place of, I make a decision to open up. I make a decision to take a risk that now anyway. And so you maybe had her as an example, but you had to...
Well, trust me, it was probably played in the back of my mind. Jennifer's probably telling everybody that I might as well just share the story.
I think I've heard this a couple of times from men going through our coaching groups. It's usually exactly that way. We men know the women they're sharing.
They're sharing.
And so we better share too.
That's right.
Because somehow it's gonna
It's going to come out.
It's gonna come out anyway.
So
That's what I call a healthy challenge.
Exactly. It's a healthy
it
challenge.
is a healthy challenge. And I'm not one that really generally likes to be challenged. And so that's been a growth area for me. I've allowed, her challenging me to be, to step up and be different, and to grow is, if it wasn't for her, I probably wouldn't have grown as much as I have over the last 5-6 years.
That has been one of the coolest things to watch. I know after we did Unstoppable, I would ask the questions and stuff, and he'd be like, "Stop coaching me." on our Bible studies in the morning, I'm like, "I'm not coaching you. I have no preconceived notion of your answer. I'm just asking a question that I feel like God wants me to ask." And now,
Rebecca doesn't like me coaching.
yeah, but he just immediately, now we can just, instead of tension starting or pride coming up and seeing, and I could see the walls. Now it's rare that happens, even though the questions are the same kind of challenging questions. We're able to call each other out a lot more clearly and able to go, "Oh, yeah, I'm doing that," because of an awareness of who we are. It's not coming from a place of condemnation. It's a place of awareness of, yeah, I struggle with that area, and understanding you're calling me out. Do we always want to hear it? Absolutely
I
not.
still always love it.
But he handles it a whole lot better.
So fast forward to the end of the first round. If you've shared your story on the Unstoppable Duo, and those podcasts are still live in our channel. So if somebody wants to go back and listen to your story and get into the nitty-gritty of it, they are very vulnerable in that episode and share that story, the ins and outs of it, and it's a good one to go back to and listen. But fast forward to the end of I remember we go through the 90-day experience, and at the end, it's the vision board, right? Where everything comes together. It's like, at the first month, it's, identify, know your enemy and own your story. And then we go through the capitals and everything. And then the vision board is like, okay, this is what it's going to be like. This is what I'm saying yes to. I'm declaring my intent by putting together this vision board. And I remember margin was your word for the year. And again, you took risks, and you did a couple of risky things. So share with us about what brought you to the word margin, first of all, and then what were some of those concrete steps that you took?
Well, first I would say this. We were talking about this morning, and I love the vision board because I feel like the vision board for us it moves us from what is God saying to you to what are you going to do about it.
Yeah.
When we put the stuff on the vision board, it now became action steps. She says,
writing it down just makes all the difference in the world.
She'll always say, you can't get to point B. You got to start at point A before B. And so for me, I went up. We're searching for words. I think we had different words, but I went on a men's hike, and it came down, and I wasn't really, the word margin wasn't necessarily attached to finances, although it became a part of that. It was more attached to our time and our relationships. And so,
yeah, I brought him into this marriage on a crazy train because I am now learning, but I did not know how to sit still. I have children that don't know how to sit still, and because I grew up in this competitive atmosphere where sitting still was being lazy. And so he jumped on this train. So we had no room for anything. It was just constant busy, constantly saying yes to things, things that we didn't need to, not bad things, but just things that we didn't need to. And so if somebody needed to sit down and talk, that wasn't something I could even do. I had to say, "Hey, how are you doing?" but not actually mean it because I couldn't sit and actually have a conversation. And so all these things, that was probably relationally, we realized going through Unstoppable, these amazing relationships and conversations that we were missing. We were having them together, but we weren't having them with other people. And we wanted the margin, the time to do that. And then for health reasons, we needed margin to actually not drop dead because we were exhausting our bodies. I had been diagnosed with a health issue that was just debilitating, and so I knew I had to do something different. So margin in our time and
Yeah, well, I think margin is just very relevant, not just to your story, but it's very relevant to a lot of American people, right? America and in Switzerland, where we've lived, or in our go. And for anybody who's listening outside of the States, you'll go to a baseball game. You'll grab a Chick-fil-A on the way back, and then you'll get everybody together, and then you'll go out again to go somewhere, and then you'll grab, some other kind of fast food, or maybe some better food, but it's like on the go a lot of the time, between jobs, hobbies, sports for the kids, and school, and all of the above.
yeah.
And so I love this, and I think it's going to be very relevant to anybody who's listening or viewing in. So what were some of those risky decisions? What were some of those decisions that you had to make, or that you chose to make?
I think that, the two biggest would be, for some reason, we felt like what God was telling us was that we needed to create financial margin to be able to do things, to be able to make a different kingdom impact.
He had come down we were praying the same time. So while he was on the mountain praying for the word and he got margin, I got that we weren't living above our means, but we were living above our purpose.
Yeah.
And so when he came down, they both went together so well. And I was like, okay, what does that mean that we're living above our purpose?
Now, when you say you got a word, or when you got this phrase, how did you get this phrase from God?
Just through prayer and quiet time. So while he was up on the mountain, Tiffin at church, she's so good about sending Bible studies to the wives at home while the men are up on the mountain. And so I would spend my time, I didn't have him in the window seat, but I still was with the Lord. So I would spend time with the Lord just in prayer and praying for the word. We were going through Unstoppable. So we were in a very yielded place of trying to grow. We had just gotten over COVID. So we were learning, margin kind of came out of that too, because all of a sudden we learned how to have dinner together and go kayaking and have afternoons with the kids, that everybody was actually home all of a sudden. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of drove that ship as well.
Yeah.
So when he came off the mountain with that, and then I shared that I had gotten this statement, we decided that it was time to sell our house and downsize. And so, gosh, really quickly.
Yeah, being in the military, moved so many times, and so I didn't love the idea of moving and packing up and moving again. But so the lady across the street was our realtor, and I said, "Listen, we're not going to show the house every day for the next 3 weeks. One day we're going to do an open house on a Saturday. If
God wants to sell this house,
if we sell it to somebody on that Saturday, great. If we don't, we're okay just living here." We had just redone the floors in the house, not for the purpose of selling it, so we had done some work around the house, and we had multiple offers within the first day.
Wow.
And it's above what we thought we were going to get, and so
we had to now find a house.
Yeah, then we were like, oh, what do we do now?
Yes, very clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, that's a very courageous decision. And I think you've made so many courageous decisions along your path to grow and take those risks. And you finished those 90 days. You then became Unstoppable Coaches and started, gathering other groups and going through the material yourselves with them and, helping them discover their purpose. Are there any coaching experiences that you feel like, oh, wow, that was an impactful moment, not just on the receiving end of this transformation, but also helping others in their transformation?
For me, it's seeing guys that finally get it.
Yeah.
And maybe it's the first time, maybe it's the third time they've been through it, and they're finally, when they finally commit to taking that, and risk is kind of it's a loaded word, right? It's not if you knew the blessing that was on the other side of it, would you classify it or define it as a risk?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah.
when you talk about selling our house, or the friendships that we've made in Unstoppable, or the things that, or getting on Christian Mingle, they seem like a risk, but the blessing on the other side. But I can't define it as a risk, and so seeing guys actually get it and be like, yes, why didn't it? All it took was for me to give a little effort into this, to actually get uncomfortable for a minute, and the growth that came out of it. And some of those guys are, them, they're close friends of ours now. They're committed to helping other guys experience the same thing, which is just really deep. For me, that is what I love about this.
Yeah, that's so good.
For me, so before doing this, really before getting to this marriage and then doing Unstoppable, I don't think, because of the way I grew up in this Baptist home or whatever, I don't think I thought you could have abundant life here on earth.
Yeah.
I thought, life's hard, suck it up. It's going to be a struggle, but you don't live in heaven yet. And when you get to heaven, it'll be different. So I did not know you could have this amazing, abundant life. Not that it's easy here on earth. And so my why is to inspire and challenge people to live in God's power and purpose so that they can experience his abundance here on earth and for eternity.
I love that.
So so when I do the coaching, for me, I get so excited when they get it. They get that they can have this abundant life and this joy with God right here on earth, that they don't have to just struggle and push through this hard life, that God is their peace and is their comfort. So when those things start to click, and then definitely when they actually start taking action, because we all, as coaches, we're like, oh, I should just take action steps.
Yeah.
Because none of it changes unless you actually do the work.
Yeah.
So I think those two things for me are just what gets me so excited. And then as a coach, I get more out of, I personally get so much, because even though you're coaching, God is just really filling you up through it all.
Yeah.
You're still unstoppable. You haven't stopped. Start taking and listening.
We're still doing our vision boards and changing our words. We were joking the other day that, so we have the cardboard, but we have not done our vision board this year. And the difference between the first few years of doing it and just writing it down, not that God hasn't done some amazing things through us. In fact, our word is abide this year. And so it's been a lot more just learning to sit and be with him, getting in the word, reading the gospels together and growing in that. But the dynamic things he does, when you write it down and go, okay, we want to be crazy generous this year. And we were able to buy a house for my parents that, the year after the margin year. Just crazy things that when you write it down, that he puts on your heart that you don't even think of.
Yeah.
So,
and I also think it's always the measurement. Like, how do you measure? You can look back and say that was great, but actually, hey, in faith, we wrote something down. Like, hey, we're downsizing, and then it works. It was something we believe God put us on our heart. We wrote it down, and then it happened. And on the other hand, too, what I love with a vision board is when you don't know, when you feel stuck, it's just even turning back to, and are we really doing it? Right. Or are we getting distracted by many other good things, but we're missing the target of what, even we want to focus on?
Such a great point. We were talking about that this morning. It's, we're just as guilty of talking about something and then having inaction in it.
Yeah.
And yes, the vision board helps that, writing it down helps that, but more than anything, it's because we are used to having these conversations. We don't go back to, we don't just forget about it. We may talk about it. We need to do a budget. We may talk about it multiple times before it actually gets done. But the important thing is we're consistently talking about it.
Yeah.
We're consistently challenging each other to grow and to do things differently.
Yeah, I love that, and I love that about the 90 days is it's not just 90 days.
Yeah.
It goes way beyond the 90 days, and it gives you a language and it gives you a format of structure to be able to go back to it and go and talk about it again. last night I got a call from somebody who went through the 90-day experience about a year ago or a year and a half ago. He's in a challenging situation. So what does he do? He goes back to what he went through. He calls me up and he says, look, this is where I'm at. I know you told me to do this differently. But this is where I'm at, and I need your help. And what I love about it is okay, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I can't do that. That's what God's got to tell you. That's what you've got to work out what your next step is. But I can ask you questions, and I can go back to the same topics that we went through, identify what's holding you back. Okay, God's gifted you with this. Hey, what's your why? What's your vision? What's your why? What's your vision for your marriage? What's your vision for your workplace? And then, okay, what's the next step? What did you put on your vision board this year, And then, okay, let's go back and let's take a look and let's just remind each other of what God's already done in our lives and what he wants to do.
Yeah.
And I think it gives us the kind of structure and the kind of language that we need to
it's so
to
good.
move forward.
I know for me, things that were limiting beliefs in the first time we went through, like other stuff has bubbled up this time, what is this, 4th or 5th or 6th? I don't even know. So even when I was reading your book, I was telling you the other day, I've never seen myself as a procrastinator because I overwork, overdo, over everything. But once I started slowing down, I realized, oh, wait, I actually procrastinate at doing the things that I really don't want to do. I was just filling my schedule up so full that I couldn't even tell it.
Yes.
So all of a sudden I saw that was kind of a hindrance to some of the things that God wants to do in my life. So he's always working, always growing in you. And the more that you dig in, he identifies areas that are holding you back that the enemy would love to use to keep you from moving forward.
Yeah.
So that's why these techniques and the process is so great, because it doesn't stop. It keeps your eye on God going, okay, tell me more, show me more. I want to grow more.
Yeah. That is awesome. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you.
Jen and John.
We are on this journey because the two of you.
Rebecca and myself, and just being vulnerable, allowing God to work on your life, but not just on your life and your relationship, but also allowing him to work through you and helping others. I know there are hundreds, and it multiplies. It's so you're helping people, and now they're helping people, and this is just an ongoing process, and we just love the fact that you have stepped into that. Rebecca, would you take a moment just to pray with us and pray with everybody listening in?
Father, thank you so much for everything you started in Gilmer's life, but also that you've started in our listeners' life. Father, thank you that you are not done. Stir up the hunger, that we want to have more. And with that, I know because you live in us and you are so much for us, we are able to take next step towards the more, towards the promises, towards the needs and the wants and the hopes and the provision that you want to give us. Thank you, Lord, that you help us taking those steps, but also help us growing closer to you. It's not just that we overcome that maybe people look differently at us. I believe by taking those steps, we grow in intimacy with you. We grow in understanding who you are and how much we are loved and how much you have chosen us and how much you love spending time with us. Thank you that you are the same. You are not holding back because of mistakes or shame. Like when we listen to John and Jen's story, it is even they felt like it. You never stop pursuing them. You never stop being there and wanting to pull yourself out into them. And it's the same for the listeners. So thank you that we can decide to keep on moving on, that we can decide to overcome and move towards you and then experiencing the overflow and the abundance that you have promised. Thank you for your goodness. Thank you for your presence. And thank you that you are truly unstoppable. Amen.
Amen.